They think I'm just the packer, the girl with chemical burns on her hands, invisible in the corners of our glass-walled Los Angeles mansion. My mother stands under the bright studio lights, glowing and smug, while my sister Madison flaunts our miracle cream to the camera charm oozing with false modesty. I watch silently, knowing the truth, the formula is mine. The unfairness cuts deep, yet in my pocket, a forgotten tax document holds the power to unravel everything they believe they own. I remember the pill bottle on my nightstand from the time I was 14, its bright orange cylinder heavier than any medicine should feel, carrying not just my health, but the weight of shame. I had been sick for months. Every day a blur of pain so sharp it doubled me over in irregular cycles that made me afraid to breathe. Finally, my mother, Patricia, sighed and drove me to a free clinic in downtown Los Angeles, ignoring the family's premium health insurance as if it didn't exist for me. The doctor was kind patient, explaining that it was polycystic ovary syndrome, a common hormonal imbalance manageable with medication. I felt a flicker of relief, thinking someone understood, someone could comfort me. But my mother heard something else. She heard liability expense burden. Her eyes, white-knuckled on the steering wheel, filled with pure disgust. To her, the doctor's courtesy meant nothing. It was irrelevant that I was hurting. She hissed at me, her voice slicing through the quiet car. But I know what this is. Sturdy blood, Sarah. It's a sign of wickedness. Your body is rejecting you because you are fundamentally broken inside. Then she tossed the prescription onto my lap, sharp and careless. You take these to hide your shame, she said. You take these so you don't embarrass this family. But don't you ever think you're normal. You are a burden. I was 14. I believed her. I swallowed those pills every morning, each dose a bitter reminder that I was damaged goods, that my body and my very existence were mistakes to be hidden away. I learned early to stay in the shadows, to keep quiet, to sweat through the sweltering hours in the converted garage, while my sister lived in air-conditioned luxury upstairs. Every chemical I mixed, every sleepless night I endured, became my world, my cage. That was the beginning of years of normalized abuse, a slow, relentless shaping of my mind to accept cruelty as inevitable, to internalize that silence and hard work were my only paths to recognition. In that silence, I learned both survival and invisibility, carrying the weight of a lie that would shape every choice, every moment of my adolescence, until it became the very fabric of who I was. My 18th birthday felt less like a celebration and more like a carefully staged trap. I had just graduated high school, and I imagined myself stepping into a college lab, chasing chemistry like I always dreamed. But Patricia had other plans. She called me to the kitchen, sliding a thick document across the polished surface. "Since you're an adult now," she said. Her tone clipped and businesslike. "We need to formalize your arrangement." I hesitated, scanning the paper. It was a 1099 independent contractor agreement. My first thought was, does this mean I get health insurance? Patricia scoffed as if I'd asked for a private jet. "Insurance is for employees," she said, her lips curling with disdain. "Employees cost me payroll taxes. Employees get benefits. You buy your own medicine with what I pay you. Sign it or get out." Fear wrapped around me, sharp and suffocating. I wanted to argue, to say I needed protections, but I was terrified of the world of my own body and of my mother's judgment. So, I signed. I signed away my voice, my agency, thinking it was the only way to survive. only to realize later that I had unknowingly gained something far greater. Patricia believed she was saving herself thousands of dollars a year in taxes and insurance premiums, blinded by her own greed, oblivious to the legal nuances of intellectual property law. Work created by employees belongs to the company she knew, but work created by an independent contractor without a written assignment that belongs to the creator. Every formula, every sleepless night, every stabilizing agent I perfected in the sweltering garage upstairs suddenly, quietly, legally belonged to me. The irony was bitter and sweet. She thought she was putting a leash on a dog, securing control over the company and my labor. Instead, she handed me the keys to the kennel, the deed to the house. It was a hidden advantage wrapped in a mundane legal form she never bothered to read. In that moment, I realized power didn't always come from visibility or recognition. Sometimes it came from patience, knowledge, and the smallest oversight of those blinded by greed. My work, my blood, sweat, and tears had always been mine, and finally, the law quietly agreed. Life in the mansion was a constant lesson in invisibility. Every day I navigated the stifling heat of the workspace while laughter and music floated down from the air-conditioned luxury above. Food was scarce for me. I learned to scavenge scraps or steal a granola bar while preparing emulsifiers for the morning batch, always mindful of being seen. Tyler mocked me relentlessly, tossing leftover steak to the golden retriever while telling me to eat in the garage, calling me sulfur and desperation. Patricia never intervened. She simply agreed, her judgmental gaze confirming that my existence was inconvenient. It wasn't just hunger. It was the daily erosion of dignity, a reminder that I was disposable, a machine built to serve their comfort. Over time, the cruelty became the backdrop of every action, the gravity that held me to the floor. Psychologists call it normalization, and they were right. You stop asking why they do it and start asking how to survive it. Silence became a shield, labor a currency to earn a fraction of recognition, a prayer that maybe someday all this effort would matter. I convinced myself that if I worked harder, mixed the perfect cream, stayed quiet enough, they would see me. I thought I was paying dues, learning discipline, earning trust. In reality, I was digging my own grave, shaping myself into the perfect, invisible worker, while the family thrived on the surface. And yet deep inside, a faint ember of awareness flickered. Each dismissal, each derisive comment, each cold dinner table encounter built something quietly, internally, a slow realization that cruelty has a breaking point, that maybe, just maybe, the constant normalization of abuse could snap, and when it did, the scales might finally tip. I moved through the days with calculated compliance eyes, down hands, busy heart, heavy with the dual weight of exhaustion and knowledge that someday the patterns might break. The laughter above the plates passed over the dog, eating better than I. Did it all settled into a rhythm that was suffocating yet familiar. And in that suffocation, I began to notice the first stirrings of power, the first understanding that survival wasn't just endurance. It was preparation for the moment when I would reclaim what had always been mine. I knew I had to push them to their limit to see if any part of them recognized me as a person, not just a tool. Using a fraction of my lottery winnings, I flew in a Hollywood makeup artist, setting him up in a hotel downtown to avoid tipping off the family. For 3 intense hours, he transformed my left hand into a nightmare of chemical necrosis. Latex paint, medical-grade adhesives, even a yellow oozing fluid that smelled like death. It was grotesque, realistic, perfect. I stared at it in the gas station mirror, my stomach twisting with anticipation and revulsion. The adrenaline coursed through me as I rehearsed every detail, every sound, every motion that would make the scene undeniable. This wasn't acting. It was a calculated test of their humanity. Would they see me, or only the machine that worked for them? Driving back to the mansion, heart hammering in sync with the pulse in my ears, I planned my entry. My stumble, my cries each moment, a trigger to observe their true reactions. I entered the glass-walled living room, stumbling to my knees, clutching my wrist as if it had been eaten away. Patricia was absorbed in her phone call, Madison flipping through fabric swatches, Tyler glued to his video game. "Mom, help me please," I screamed, voice raw, filled with terror and pain. I unwrapped the bandage, slowly revealing the horrific illusion. "It's the new solvent," I sobbed. "It ate through the gloves. The doctor said it's gangrene. If I don't get surgery tonight, it could spread to my heart. I'll die, Mom." Madison shrieked and scrambled back, covering her mouth. Tyler barely glanced up, a sneer on his face. Every second I held their gaze, my mind racing. Would they act on instinct, seeing me as family, or would schedules, money, and convenience override empathy? The silence, the measured distance, the disinterest in my suffering confirmed years of fear. In that suspended, heart-stopping moment, I understood completely. I was invisible in their eyes, except for the work I produced. Their values were clear. The adrenaline mixed with a cold clarity. I had the power, I had the advantage, and finally, I knew exactly how little they truly cared for me, beyond what I created for them. The stage was set. I just had to make the next move. The moment had come to test them fully, to see if profit outweighed family, if my value was measured in dollars or in blood. I stumbled into the living room, moaning, clutching my left hand as if it had been ravaged by the new solvent. Patricia was on the phone. Madison distracted by fabric swatches for her victory outfit. Tyler sprawled on the counter, absorbed in his video game. "Mom, help me please," I screamed, my voice raw, trembling, carrying every ounce of desperation I could muster. I unwrapped the bandage, slowly revealing the grotesque illusion beneath blackened, peeling skin, weeping yellow fluid, the perfect nightmare of chemical necrosis. "It's gangrene," I sobbed. "The doctor said if I don't get surgery tonight, it could spread to my heart. I'll die, Mom." Madison shrieked and scrambled back, covering her mouth, recoiling as if she'd glimpsed actual death. Tyler barely looked up, scoffing, indifferent, absorbed in his game. The contrast of panic and apathy washed over me like ice water. Every instinct screamed that they would finally act, that the bond of blood might override greed. Yet the silence that followed only sharpened the clarity forming in my mind. My mother finally lowered her phone, her gaze calm, almost clinical, inspecting my hand, as if it were a defective shipment. The sobbing in my chest slowed. The adrenaline still roared, but now laced with comprehension. They did not care. Not for my life, not for my pain. Only schedules, shipping, and money mattered. "I need $5,000, I pleaded, voice cracking. "The surgery isn't covered because I'm a contractor. Please, Mom, just $5,000. I'll pay you back. I'll work for free the rest of my life. Just save my hand." Patricia didn't move. She didn't reach for her wallet. Her calm eyes, so familiar and so distant, met mine. "Sarah," she said, her voice soft but unyielding. "We are 48 hours from the biggest deal of our lives. Every cent of liquidity is tied up in escrow. I cannot withdraw $5,000 right now. It would trigger an audit. It would spook the buyers. But your hand if it's really that bad. She paused, looking straight into my eyes. Maybe you should just let them amputate. A prosthetic is cheaper than emergency vascular surgery. Besides, you don't need fine motor skills to screw lids onto jars. You can do that with a hook. Take a pill. Wrap it in duct tape so you don't drip on the merchandise. We have 3,000 units to ship by morning. If you're not in the garage in 10 minutes, don't bother coming back at all. My heart sank, but with it came a revelation. They didn't hate me just for being me. They didn't just use me. They placed profits above my very life. Fear gave way to understanding, the fog of years of normalized abuse clearing to reveal raw truth. In that instant, I stopped being terrified. Clarity struck. Greed ruled this house, and I had the knowledge, the rights, the leverage to turn it on its head. No longer a victim, I began to strategize, calculating each move, each response, each step toward reclaiming what was mine. The family's apathy had illuminated my path. Every second of cruelty had forged me for this moment, preparing me for the reclamation of my power. The next day, the mansion was a stage prepped for a celebration of their own imagined triumph. Cameras, lights, smiles, and talk of legacy and empowerment masked the truth that had always belonged to me. $50 million on the table, lawyers, primed investors waiting, and yet the power was finally mine. I walked through the doors with calculated poise, dressed in a crisp white power suit, flanked by security and Mr. Washington, the investor, who understood the plan from the start. Silence fell instantly. Every chatter, every smile froze as eyes tracked me. I moved to the CEO's chair as if it had always been mine, the room holding its breath. My mother's phone call faltered. Madison's victory outfit lost its charm. Tyler's game screen reflected nothing but panic. I leaned back, calm measured every motion intentional. "Hello," I said, addressing the cameras. "I'm the investor." Panic rippled through them, immediate and raw. The empire they thought was theirs crumbled in an instant, though they didn't yet understand why. Mr. Washington spoke next, revealing the truth. I was the legal owner. The tax document, the independent contractor writes the patents and trademarks, they were mine. I had never signed them away. The license was revoked. Pure Life was closed. The legal foundations of their empire disintegrated in real time. Silence and shock collided with the noise of the cameras, capturing it all, the spectacle of their unraveling immortalized. Then I added the final blow. I also owned the mortgage. Their house was in default, 30 days to vacate. No one moved, no one spoke. The gravity of the moment pressed down like the heavy air of the mansion's glass walls. Outside, the world continued unaware of the dramatic shift inside. I watched as the empire my family had celebrated, defended, and built on my labor collapsed into dust, and for the first time, I breathed freely. The old gloves I had worn for years, symbolic of the work, the endurance, and the secrecy, were discarded into the trash. There was release in that act, a tangible sense of closure. Forgiveness wasn't about restoring relationships or absolving the cruelty. It was about liberation, about unshackling myself from the control that had defined my life. I walked away, leaving behind the mansion, the cameras, the empire, and the family who had never truly seen me. For the first time, I was no longer surviving under someone else's rules. Every decision, every move, every breath belonged to me. Driving away, I reflected on what it meant to reclaim life, to turn knowledge, patience, and strategy into freedom. The power I had always had, quietly held, was now undeniable, and the world for the first time belonged entirely to me. Liberation wasn't loud. It was a slow, profound settling of every fear, every injustice, every moment of control reversed, leaving only clarity, strength, and the unshakable understanding that I was finally in the driver's seat of my own life. As I drove away, the mansion shrinking in my rear view, a weight I hadn't realized I'd carried, lifted, leaving only clarity and control. The past, the abuse, the silence, the labor that went unseen remained behind me, no longer defining my steps. I felt the power of boundaries and the quiet strength that comes from knowing your own worth. It's a reminder that reclaiming your life often begins with awareness, patience, and courage, and that freedom is found in taking the wheel of your own story.